By 2024, the last version of the J11 series will be the J11BG. As a fighter with high expectations, many people believe that the J11BG is the best non-stealth fighter in China, with a combat capability far superior to that of the Su-35 and even stronger than that of the J16. Then J11BG combat power, really so strong. In fact, the combat power of J11BG is indeed fair, but to say that its overall combat power exceeds that of Su-35 or even J16 is somewhat exaggerated. The J11BG is actually a fighter aircraft that has improved its avionics system on the J11B. The G in its name actually means change. As you can see from the name, the J11BG is modified from the J11B, and its frame is still a J11B, and the prototype of J11B is familiar to everyone. That is the Russian Su-27 fighter. That is to say, many of the problems that Su-27 has on it have been inherited by J11BG. So what are the problems with the Su-27? One of the biggest is the fuselage strength problem. When the Soviet Union developed the Su-27, it encountered the problem of excessive weight of subsystems. Because of the weight of the radar, computer and other components, the Soviet Union had to constantly punch holes in the Su-27 and use thinner parts to reduce the weight of the Su-27 itself. Outside of the subsystems, the Soviet Union used a different swept-back wing design than the MiG family of fighters in order to increase the range and speed of the Su-27. The advantage of the swept-back wing design was that it minimized drag on the fighter, thus increasing its range and speed. The disadvantage is that the airflow is easily separated from the wingtip, and the induced drag will be very high when the fighter is flying at subsonic speed. This also leads to the fact that when the swept-back wing fighter like Su-27 hangs bombs on the wingtips, the wings will be under more pressure. If the Su-27 fuselage is made of tougher materials, this fighter can still hang more bombs and become a multi-purpose fighter. But the point is that before the Su-27, in order to reduce the weight of the fuselage, has been punched all over the fuselage, as well as the use of thinner parts, making the fuselage strength on the low side. In addition, the Soviet Union's material science development itself is relatively backward. The Su-27 cannot use any advanced composite materials, so the strength of the Su-27 fuselage compared to the MiG-25 and later Su-35, J-16 and other fighters itself is very poor. The J-11 inherited this problem during production, although China later improved the J-11 fighter with the J-11B fighter to a certain extent to improve the strength of the fuselage, but the J-11B fighter's fuselage strength is still not enough. So the J-11B is still a pure air superiority fighter, not a multi-purpose fighter. To solve the fuselage strength problem of J-11 series fighters, there are two main improvement directions. One is to use more advanced materials, and the other is to use smaller and lighter subsystems so that the fighters can use materials with thicker thicknesses. And the J-11 fighter was so improved that it gave birth to the J-16 fighter. So the J-16 is the fighter that basically improved the defect of the J-11 series. Although the J-11BG also improved many defect of the J-11B, the J-11BG was based on the original production of the J-11B and replaced the original avionics system with a new avionics system. Therefore, although the J-11BG is more advanced than the J-11B, it is still not comparable to the J-16. Why J-11BG? The main purpose of China's improvement of J-11B and production of J-11BG is to make the best use of what it has. According to public data, J-11B fighters entered service in small batches in 2008 and officially entered service in 2009, with a total production of about 300 aircraft. Normally, the service life of a warplane is between 20 and 25 years. If life extension treatment is used, the service life can reach more than 30 years. By the end of 2024, the earliest batch of J-11B fighters in China's service will only be about 15 years old, far from being retired. But the J-11Bs are relatively outdated, at least compared to the J-16s. So China has improved the J-11Bs by converting the existing J-11Bs into J-11BGs. Overall, the J-11BGs are not particularly advanced, but they are good enough for the situation China is currently facing. China has India in the southwest and Japan and South Korea in the northeast. Although the J-11BG is difficult to fight against the American F-35 and other fifth-generation aircraft, It is sufficient to deal with the F-15J in the hands of Japan and the Su-30 in the hands of India. In the case of J-20, J-16 and other fighters are not particularly large in number. J-11BG can make up for the lack of fourth-generation aircraft very well, although the J-11BG is slightly insufficient compared to the J-16. It surpasses the Russian Su-35 fighter in terms of air combat capability against it. One of the clichés is still the same, that is, Russia's electronic technology is too backward. In terms of radar, Su-35 fighters use passive, phased array radar in detection accuracy, angle, distance and other performance indicators are far worse than the active phased array radar used by the J-16 fighters. The two fighters use the radar has been a generation difference. J-11B fighters use China's domestic 1493 pulse Doppler radar. The radar is behind the Su-35, using the Snow Leopardy radar. However, now that the J-11B has been transformed into the J-11BG, the avionics system used is beginning to be on par with that of the J-16, so the avionics system of the J-11BG is again more advanced than that of the Russian Su-35. Although the J-11BG's fuselage strength problem remains unsolved, the J-11BG has a stronger long-range air combat capability than the Su-35 because it uses more advanced radar, airborne computers, fire control systems and other subsystems. And China's Air Force system is also far more advanced than Russia's. China has more advanced airborne early warning aircraft, more advanced data chains, and more advanced long-range air-to-air missiles. When the J-11BG and Su-30 fighters in close air combat, both sides because of the same aerodynamic shape design, so the air combat victory, or defeat, 50-50. But once the two fighters are separated by hundreds of kilometers, or even with the Air Force system, the J-11BG's chances of winning are quite large. Of course, in terms of air-to-ground strike capability, the J-11BG is not as good as the Su-35, so overall, the J-11BG is still a product that upgrades an otherwise backward fighter to be usable, and makes the best use of it.